I still can't see it on my end.
You should be able to see it now. We're live. We're live. If anybody can see us, we're having some technical difficulties with YouTube right now. But that is one ugly headphone, the XC. Dude, it's the best looking headphone out there. If you don't like the way the XC looks, get out. I'm just kidding.
It needs more figuring on the wood.
As opposed to just like the straightforward orange wood.
Yeah.
Whereas the ZMFs have that like
the grain.
Yeah, a little bit of that. I don't know. I kind of like because like in person, it's the finish on it is really nice for the XC. It's a little heavy-handed on the finish, so it almost looks too well produced and polished.
I'm guessing it looks like half almost translucent. You can see the different layers of the grain.
You can see it if you pay close attention. But the ZMF Verite stands out a little bit more.
I think it looks really in the pictures it looks very very orange.
Yeah,
it is orange basically.
Like it almost reminds me of like the way that Fostex does their like where, you know what I mean, where there's almost no grain in it and just like almost but when you actually get, like you said, when you get real into it and look at it, you can see the grain.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But I also would have preferred, like, I think the look of the carbon one is cooler just because, or like the sort of like more matte kind of black look. I prefer that. But the thing is, you don't always know what the tuning is going to be like on the other versions of something, right? So, we're getting some keyboard clickies in here.
Rode mic, but not, that's so weird. I'll figure it out one day.
How are we doing for audio levels, guys?
Yeah, audio. How are we doing? We're not weird craziness.
We switched a bunch of stuff around. We got Chrono a camera, and then the camera battery died, so we can't. There's a lot of stuff that we're changing, and we're trying to make sure everything works.
I promise that I tried to be on the camera. However, the camera chose to just run dry. I'm in the process of charging it. It may or may not make an appearance by the end. We don't know.
Yeah, sorry, Resolve is wearing the Radiance.
I was gonna say, Precog's just hanging out there without the camera. He's like, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I need to get a camera eventually, though. It's gotta happen.
I could try to iPhone it, but I doubt it'll be that great.
Yeah, you can do that. It does. That kind of stuff does work. I'll show you guys here. This is the little focus on it.
Yeah,
Radiance.
It's a very good looking headphone.
That is truly
audio
beautiful.
Is way too loud. Let me bring it down.
Whose is?
Elnick. Sorry, man. Like
it's fixed on their end.
He just had his volume cranked.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I had to move. Like mine right now is like all messed up because I had to I literally was rearranging my whole space right before the stream, and so
we still have it so that we're facing opposite directions. So somebody's gonna be annoyed by that, even though on mine it looks like we're facing the right direction.
It's so ridiculous. It's so crazy. I don't know how that. Like, I wish you could just grab then just and pull it over, but that's not how this works. Like,
yeah. If anybody has a solution for how we can rearrange the windows on Discord, let us know because I have not been able to find that.
Yeah, me neither. It's so crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, welcome to the stream, guys. We have a flawless live stream coming for you guys today. Without any technical issues whatsoever, and the image for everybody here, including Theo, looks perfect. Everybody has, the perfect camera setup, so it's a good thing we don't have any issues with that stuff.
Guys, my camera died.
Be prepared for some green flashes on mine because apparently there's a weird bug between my new.
It's not a flaw; it's planned, guys.
No,
the green flash is supposed to be there.
It's art. It's artistic.
Art, yeah, it's like the green flash on the sunset when you're out in the ocean.
Exactly.
I opened Rune. Does that mean Discord's gonna break?
Yes. You accidentally opened Rune? Yeah, I've done that before.
I tried to go to Google so I could read the comment.
And suddenly you can't hear anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's we might as well get going here with the live stream. We got lots of people and I don't want to bore you guys with all this. Well, maybe I do. Yeah.
Is what it is.
Yeah, so I guess there's lots of stuff to talk about, but we should probably talk. Oh, there it is. I saw it.
This flashed twice.
But yeah, we should probably start with some of the. Is there any news you got for you guys? Any news for new stuff coming out or stuff that you just recently, Tyler, heard the Blessing 2?
Yeah,
finally.
Actually, I have those right here.
You have them. Okay, perfect. So what's your live take on the Blessing 2 for everybody watching?
God,
this is the $320 IEM from Moondrop.
Yeah, so like these. Green flash. There you go. Blessing 2. They're kind of a big chunky boy. But anyways, to the actual that green flash is gonna irritate the crap out of me. The sound on them is I'm very impressed for the price. Like I think these actually probably beat everything in the IEM world under $500 that I've heard so far.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like they sound very good, and the bass is I think the king of that you know what I mean. They do bass very well.
And that's the thing is the bass isn't elevated, but because it's using a dynamic driver, it feels impactful. You know?
I'm very impressed. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
I would almost say better than anything under 1,000. But Theo has a probably better perspective than, or Precog has a better perspective.
Wait till you hear the Monarch and the Clairvoyance.
So that's the Monarch has showed up. I have to still go pick it up.
Ooh,
I have to pick it up. I don't have it in house. It's at the depot right now because
where
I live, it sucks to deliver stuff to my apartment. But I'll probably be picking that up today right after the stream, and then I'll get a chance to hear it. So that's exciting.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I'm actually excited for that because I want to hear what your intake is because I only got to listen to it for a very short amount of time.
But the Monarch is how much is that?
700.
Yeah. Okay. So really, that might be, who knows, right? I need to hear it, but like, depending on how the Blessing 2 compares to that could be like the next step, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
benchmark for that price point.
Which is a pretty that's a substantial price jump from $320 to $700 or around $700. That's I'm just trying to think if there's anything else in that range that would be close.
Well, then
Tyler's
there's a
dying
new one.
Because of the green flash.
Yeah, just
it's you know what it is. It's probably the USB port that you have your capture card plugged into.
I bet you it is. Maybe I can swap it out. 'Cause right now I'm using I'm having it direct into USB-C to USB-C, so I could probably swap it to a USB.
Yeah, I got to get that bulk collection going for USB. But okay, so Precog, sorry, you were saying something about the distance between Blessing 2 and the Monarch, and the question is there anything else in that range worth?
Yeah, that's tough actually because the Monarch is at 700, right? And that sort of undercuts the traditional like kilobuck benchmarks like the Andromeda and the Sony M9, and I think that puts it in a really good position as well because it's a couple hundred under them, and if it performs at the same level, well, it's going to be the next benchmark, obviously, for most people, I think. But yeah, I'd have to hear it, obviously, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it too.
Well, we'll get it out to you soon.
Yeah, it's getting rave reviews though from everybody. That's why I'm like, it's hype.
Yeah, definitely. So, but I'm still kind of like racking my brain for like other IEMs in that price range, and I can't think of anything that I personally would choose, between the Blessing 2 and the Monarch, or before that it would have been even honestly like the Andromeda 2020, or let's say Sony M9 or some of these other kilobuck IEMs. So for me it was even more extreme before, but we'll see how the Monarch does.
Yeah,
I have a bunch of other stuff I was going to share that I have. Oh, damn it! I swapped cables and it's still
that might just be the way that it is today. It's the gremlins showing up. Okay, so but Tyler has heard both the Blessing 2 and the Monarch, right?
And I would say the Monarch's better.
Okay.
Monarch's better. But mind you, it was very short listen. I had just a couple songs, but just in those short few songs, I listened to the Neo, the Monarch, and the Clairvoyance back to back. And the Monarch stood out the most for me amongst the three.
Did you listen to the Neo with the MX module or the M15?
I think it was whatever Ant had in it at the time.
M15 probably.
Was it
I
really
liked
bassy?
the M10.
It was bassy. It was
Then
definitely
it's
Yeah,
the M15.
yeah.
M15, yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
it was like that. I think that's why it stood out so much. Like it grabbed me and was like, oh man.
Yeah, that thing is sub-bass galore. If
Yeah.
that's your thing.
The bass heads IEM.
Yep.
I mean, the rest of it was like the U12T to me, but then the bass just was like.
Yeah, the mid-range and the treble. The treble's a little bit more laid back, but it's really reminiscent of the U12T.
Yeah. Not like technicality wise, but like the profile, like the feelings I got from it.
Yeah.
Trying to think, what else did I grab? I got the mini mest. Yeah, Ant
Oh.
let me have the mini mest. So
Interesting. That's the one that the Mest. Okay, I should probably talk a little bit about the Mest because that's. So I had the one that was on the loaner tour for Headphone, right? And that one, to me, the tonal balance was a bit odd there because it was missing a lot of mids. But then because that's the universal version and it's using a bone conduction driver in the mid range, I get the feeling that the custom version or some, depending on maybe the different tips where you could have a different fit, it would yield a more balanced presentation for the mids. And so I think that's something where it's almost difficult to properly evaluate it unless you're getting the custom version that has the mids, I guess. And it also makes me think, I mean, this is something that I measured it on the rig with the on the Gross rig with the external coupler, so not using the pinna flanged ear piece here. And then I measured it with the pinna flange, and it measured a lot different with the pinna. So, I mean, obviously, you're not actually getting bone conduction with just this on a rig because there's no bones. You're not actually right. It's not the same. But the fact that it was different enough with a pinna flange there already was, an indication. I think that it's worth considering, fit and all the rest of that stuff with those really unique drivers.
It really is. Like, it's one of my favorites. And then I know that Ant has his customs, and I actually have some pictures of it. I wouldn't be able to really show it really.
The detail on that thing was just like, I don't have enough experience with all these other IEMs like the Clairvoyance and the Monarch and whatever else, to be able to say how it compares to those. But among that $1,300 to $2,000 range, like, I thought the Mest was one of the best. The Mest was one of the best.
Mest is the best.
So yeah, I was, and it's funny because I'd recently come off of having a first impression of the Empire Ears Odin, which I'll have a review on soon. But
I don't know if it be seen or not, but that was,
I can see it.
Is
that bubble tea?
No, that's actually cold brew. That's the Starbucks Reserve, and it's the cold brew.
Oh right, you're in Seattle. They're all about Starbucks.
Yeah, the whiskey.
It's not like Starbucks anywhere else. Like, if you go to Seattle, Starbucks is a different thing.
Well, Starbucks is the jam.
Yeah.
But it has whiskey barrel aged beans. So they take an old whiskey barrel and they dump all the beans in there and let them age in a barrel that's been used for whiskey, and then they take it out, and anyways, it's delicious. And then that picture was of all the Mest. It's the Mest Mini, the Mest Universal, and then the custom Mest. And so, but yeah, Ant really likes it a lot.
To your preference was, I wanted to ask about the difference between the mini Mest and the regular Mest as far as like technicalities goes.
I think it's definitely lacking. Like, it's
okay.
It's weird to say it, but it's like, it's definitely has that naked. Yeah, it's like. It's definitely a $500 cut in technicalities.
Right.
That makes sense.
Okay. Because I was to say, like, if it's similar, but then they just changed the tuning, then I might be more into that one. But that was the most shocking thing about the Mest was the detail. Like, it was, and the imaging. Actually,
say it's comparable to Odin because you had Odin on hand as well.
No, so that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. So like the detail, It's hard to say because, like, no, I don't think it was on the same level of the Odin, but it reminded me of the Odin. It reminded me in certain places. It reminded me of the Odin. But of course, it's tough to tell because the Odin has quite a bit of what the IEM community calls pinna gain, even though that's the wrong term. But yeah, the Odin has quite a bit of ear-related gain going on, especially like in the areas where the at least the universal Mest is recessed. So
lacking. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not quite a fair comparison there, unless you EQ, and I did not get to EQing them, and I don't think I would because I don't like EQing IEMs. I know you can use wavelet and stuff like that, but like I don't know. For me, IEMs,
Yeah, I don't
like,
EQ either because
yeah.
you're always on the move with them.
Maybe if you can modify, like, I need to do that with the final A8000. I want to try doing a
if
mod
you
where...
figure out an EQ for that, definitely send it over to me because
Yeah. Oh, I did actually
like...
have an EQ for it because...
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I do have an EQ for it, but I just don't think it's realistic to use because people are going to be on the go and stuff like that, and it takes some fairly like narrow adjustments. So
okay, but yeah, I'd love to check that out.
Yeah. We'll connect and we'll get that figured out. Do you still have it?
Yeah, I still have it.
Oh, wicked. Okay, cool. But yeah, between the Mest and the Odin definitely had more of a kind of clear picture there for everything. Like I was able to, and like the Odin had a way of presenting detail that was extremely smooth.
Mm-hmm.
That it was just, and maybe that was more to do with the frequency response than anything else. Which was also great for the kind of music that I listen to. I think if you're into more like upbeat is maybe the wrong word, but like more, say like electronic or hip hop or any of that kind of stuff, music that people actually like these days, then maybe the mids might be a little bit forward there. Like the upper mids might be a little
I've heard
intense.
about the upper mid range.
Yeah. And I was talking to Kryn about this as well, where like he was saying like the distance between the lower mids and the upper mids is maybe a bit much, and I can see that. I can agree with that. But for me, the music that I listened to, it was perfect. Like that tuning was, especially. That's the other thing is that the Odin. Again, I'll have a review of that soon. But like the Odin's bass response for some genres will be bass. It'll be bass light for some genres. But if you're listening to music that tokens the full frequency range, like goes all the way down, like it extends into the sub bass and stuff like that, the Odin has lots of bass. So it's a little bit like the Blessing 2 in that sense, where it's like not elevated, but because it's using a dynamic driver,
is it using their W9 one?
It's a good question. I actually don't
know. They have
know.
a proprietary one.
Yeah, the Weapon 9 they call it. But and in the Legend X they use two of them, and it's just crazy. But I don't know if they're using the same one. I'll have to do more of a deep dive into it because I only really had a first impressions of it.
Yeah.
Because I had it for like a couple days at most.
Yeah, because I gotta listen to it at Torx, and it was.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yeah, and it reminded me of the Utopia, to be honest with you. Like that's what it like.
Yeah,
I was like, this.
Yeah,
is
actually, that's a good comparison. I like that. I know Ant doesn't like I know Kryn doesn't like the Sonyan E-stats or the Electret or whatever they want to call them. Drivers up top, but to me it was not. I don't know. I didn't mind them.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah,
smooth,
I mean,
smooth is accurate too.
If the trade-off for getting them to have a tuning like that, at least for an Empire Ears IEM, I'm happy. If that's the trade-off, I'm happy. Like, using the Sonyan E stats instead of just more BAs, because like 64 Audio and their TIA drivers usually have, at least from my experience, the best treble performance.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
I really like the 64 Audio stuff.
Yeah. But so comparing again the Mest and the Odin, I think the Mest is it reminded me of that kind of detail, but not on the same level. Tyler, I'll let you. I just have to take care of something real quick here.
Oh yeah. I'll jump in real quick to talk. So I don't know if you guys have experience precog with over ears, but what are your thoughts on the upcoming Sennheiser 560S? I think everyone's talking about it in the chat. A little bit. I'm intrigued by it, to say the least. It sounds like in Chrono, maybe you can jump in too, but like I'm intrigued, but I'm not really, my hype level is not really there for it, if that makes sense.
Permission to speak freely?
Yeah, go for it, man.
If I'm being honest, man, to me it just seems like it's a bit of a hype blowout. Not too different from the HD5X. I haven't listened to it myself, so I really shouldn't comment, but I don't know. It's giving me that kind of vibe where it's like, should it really? I mean, I don't know. Like people saying that it's better than the HD600 series.
Oof, that's high.
That to me, it's like I highly doubt it.
That's bait. That's hanging bait.
I haven't listened. I haven't listened to it, so I shouldn't maybe I shouldn't say anything. It's interesting. I definitely want to try it out. I know that the 5 series, from Sennheiser is great. Yeah. I think it's usually, from my experience, it was actually better for comfort than the 6 series. So
yeah.
But as far as
sound,
560. Yeah.
Okay. Did you guys see the one video of the guy who is like, he hadn't heard it, he didn't have it on hand, but he's looking at the frequency response. I think it was done on a flat plate. I'm not sure, but it wasn't done on a standardized measurement rig. It was either a flat plate or an ears. Mm-hmm. And he was like analyzing the frequency response to the 560S and saying, here's why it's terrible and not good in the treble. Talking about
the little peaks in the treble and how it should be like.
I had to laugh because it's like, if it were measured on a Gross rig, you actually wouldn't want it to measure like what he was suggesting. He's like, you want it to have this smooth curve, and it's like, no, you don't. Like that's you actually want it to dip around like 9K hertz where it did, but it wasn't made clear what the rig was that he was looking using. At. So yeah, well, he didn't even measure it. He just looked at somebody else's measurement. And the only one I've seen is DMS did one, I think, with the ears rig. And then DIY Audio Heaven, what's his name? I can't remember his name. Nice guy. He uses a flat plate, I think. So, we don't actually have any accurate measurements of that yet, as far as I've seen. And if somebody has seen some, let me know, because I'd love to take a look at that and compare it. But yeah,
measurements aside, though, and like frequency response, I feel like the performance is probably exaggerated. That's my guess.
Well, I think what DMS said, it was like a HD 600 with the HD 800 soundstage. Was that what he said?
No idea. Haven't watched.
I know he was impressed by its soundstage over the 6 series, but
that's not a high benchmark. The 6 series soundstage,
right? But I need to, I look forward to, getting one of those in.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see what they come out with and how I'm intrigued by it, but I'm not necessarily ready to call it the end game that people are hyping it to be right now. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, it's supposed to be sort of like a tribute reissue kind of model, right? To the original 560.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's
interesting. It's just that also the price point. Like if it was 150, I'd be like, oh, that's more. But at $217.95, kind of odd. But let's call it $220. That's like right next to the HD 6XX. So
not the price point. Yeah, the price point would be interesting. Like for like how they're bringing it in, right? Like where it sits, because it sits higher than the 5.8X, right?
Yeah. So it's actually right next to the HD 6XX. So it's $220. It's 120.
So it's not as good as the HD 6XX. It's kind of irrelevant.
Well,
I don't want to say that. Actually, that's an overstatement. But it's going to put it into contention with it, and
right.
Yeah, it's not. It's just a strange business move, I think, kind of in some perspectives.
I mean, that's the whole problem with like drop in general. It's not a problem. It's just they've had the 6X for 220, and it kind of undercuts like literally everything, including Sennheiser's own stuff. So when they release something that's at that price, it might be great for where they're situating it in their own lineup. But then when you take a look at how drop is undercutting it, with the 6XX, it becomes a bit of a challenge.
Yeah,
definitely.
To last Rhino, I know it's a new driver. I was just saying that it's supposed to be sort of sort of new version of that series.
Going for like a similar tuning, most likely.
Yeah, very likely.
With a new driver, that makes sense. Well, and here's the other thing though, it's what 120 ohms.
Oh.
And it's
120 ohms.
And the 6XX is 300.
Mm-hmm.
So we could probably expect that it won't scale as well as the 6XX.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the 6XX with its scaling is that, and this is something, of course, Last Rhino knows as well. The cool thing about it is these days you don't actually need to spend that much money to be able to get most of the scaling benefits from the HD6X. We've talked about this in the past in live streams.
Yeah.
Like, once you start to spend the $2,000 and stuff like that on amps and stuff like that for the 6XX, then it stops being, worth the price. But these days, like a topping L30, or honestly, there's so many amps coming out from like, there's the topping A90 and a lot of these other amps that are in the $500-ish range, $400, stuff like that. That'll probably give you enough power to get it to scale, perfectly well. Like, you don't need to actually spend the $2,000 to get it to sound great. And I don't think that an HD 560S, I mean, Chris, this is without actually hearing it, so I can't really pass judgment that well, but I don't imagine that it'll scale the same way. And that's my only real, it's not a concern, but it's my only real like question mark, I guess, with the 560S.
Yeah. I think I agree. I don't think it's gonna be a scaling thing. I think in the last round I kind of mentioned too here a little bit, but like I think what their goal is for those people that are not having the amps, not having the things in place for maybe studio stuff, maybe, right? Like, so they can have it more easier, like for the on the go like mixer or like that kind of thing. Maybe that's so they don't have to worry about an amp. They can plug right up to their iPhone, or like maybe like the people that are using their iPads to do mixing, and and I think that would be a really good use case for something like that. If they're going for studio neutral and it's easy, you can plug right into an iPhone dongle or an iPad dongle and go, and you got solid sound and ready to rock. I mean,
but the only comment I have is that then the HD58X can be up to $70 cheaper, and that's an 150 ohm headphone. Not that much harder to drive than the 120 ohm, 110 dB per milliwatt.
Well, that's another discussion, anyways. The drop tends to eat into.
But it's the same problem. It's the same thing where they've undercut their own. Yeah. So. But the other consideration though is that in Europe and the UK, it's harder to get the drop stuff, and the prices for Sennheiser ends up being a lot more palatable, given the rest of whatever else is out there. And I see this all the time on, when we're doing reviews of anything from Sennheiser, and we're talking about the HD6XX or using that as a comparable for value that doesn't apply in Europe, because and in the UK you got to pay the crazy the VAT prices and all that stuff. Yeah. So
bananas.
I think it's just us in North America. Well, probably even just America, because even in Canada, if you try and order stuff through Drop, it's like you get hit with crazy customs fees and stuff like that. I tried to order something from Drop once. It was like $60 for customs fee. And I was like, that makes it not as,
instantaneously.
The value proposition just goes out the window there.
Yeah, I think it's the sort of USA perspective that is kind of twisted for me, and I tend to forget that Drop is no longer as active or active at all in Europe and other regions of the world, so these things are not as relevant. But at the same time, I think, well, if the 560 is available, then so is the 600 for $80 more. And if you have an amp, I don't know why you would. I mean, unless it really does outperform the 600.
Yeah,
I think
that. I don't know, like that. I mean, it very well could outperform it, but it just seems.
Bottom line is we need to hear it.
Yes. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Like we're all we're doing.
Well, we're not scrutinizing the frequency response. All right, we're not going that far.
But yeah, like I think we have to hear it. I think at the end of the day, we'll hear it, we'll get a good impression of it, and get an idea, and move forward from there.
Yeah.
But I think outside of that, the Radiance. Let's talk about.
Oh yeah, this is the other news.
I mean, because that to me is like gorgeous. Like that is just one of the best looking headphones I've seen in a long time. Like it just really just fits the bill for me, anyways. Minus, I mean, I still have my preference. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like I'm gonna probably.
Wait, but that's the Verite. That's really expensive.
Touche. But yeah, no, I think that. But the Radiance though, like God, man, that. So and you've had it for now. One of very few that has actually been able to listen to it. And so what's I mean you did your review earlier and dropped and that's and people can watch that in the channel. You can check it out. But real quick, live, what's some of your thoughts that are just in general?
I think in general the problem with the Radiance is the framing, the context, because I mean, I said this in the video as well, but there's a lot of hype when Focal releases a new headphone, in general. Whether it was the Stelia, it was the Elegia, it was the Clear, like Focal releasing a new headphone is exciting for everybody, myself included. And especially if they're releasing a closeback, and they're releasing a closeback at $1,300. That's a price tag that I think anybody who is looking for a top tier office headphone, that's going to fit the bill. For that price tag is going to be that range, makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. And there's a hope, like I said in the video, there's a hope that $1,300 they release a closeback that sounds like the Clear, and that is just not this headphone. That's not what they're going for with this. They're going for a much warmer tuning. And I think somebody's asking me in the comments in that video, they were saying, is it like a ZMF, like a Focal headphone that's tuned a little bit more like a ZMF?
I think I did see
and
that. Yeah.
It's the closest thing that they've done to that kind of tuning, but at the same time, it's not quite that kind of thing either, because for the ZMF ones, they tend to be a little more relaxed there in the upper mids, and this is less about being relaxed in the upper mids and more about being relaxed in the lower treble. So it's not quite like a ZMF in that sense. And also the ZMF stuff is it also is better for timbre. If I had to point to one weakness for the technical performance of the Radiance, it's that the timbre is a lot more closer to the Elegia in the mids, at least in the upper mids. In the lower mids, it's more, it's a little bit more, let's say, natural. And to describe a little better, it's like I hear in spite of the fact that this is a warmer headphone in general, I still hear it being a little bit more on the analytic side, and like being able to, this is your analogy of it's a lean forward thing or lean back thing. This is a warm tuned headphone that's still a lean forward kind of presentation.
That's intriguing. That's kind of cool.
Which is it is intriguing. But I do think it's straight up a better tuning than the Elegia. Like I just think it's flat out better. Regardless, if you don't EQ, this is more to my taste than the Elegia, and it is bassier. It's the bassiest of Focal's headphones, but at the same time, it's not that's just euphonic and lush and kind of I don't know how else to describe it, but the stuff that ZMF does really well for timbre, and I really think that stuff, right? Whatever that
ZMF
is,
magic.
It does it. Yeah, exactly. This has closer, more of an analytic timbre, or more of an let's say, forward timbre than the ZMF stuff. And $1,300 puts it in the same price range as the Icon and Atticus and some of that stuff, right? So there's
some competition there
there is some competition there, right? Where this does better, I think, is that it does have better detail than some of those. Like some of the biodynamic stuff, because this is still using the same type of driver that's in the Clear, right? That's is using a aluminum magnesium driver. Now, I don't think it's on the same level as the Clear. It's certainly not in the mids, but it's, I'd say the closer closeback headphone.
and you have to and it is something that I think about too. Is like people you can't take, and you know this, Rizal, everyone knows this, but like most people know this, but you can't comparing a closed back to an open back is apples to oranges, like because there's the resonance, there's these other things that they're trying to to deal with, and I think it's tough to, I don't know, like it's tough to kind of balance that, and at least from my experience this most.
Right. And if we scrutinize the frequency response on the Radiance, I don't think it's so, people are looking at the frequency response of the Radiance and they're going, oh, that doesn't look that great. But if you take an approach that looks at the narrower frequency ranges, it is actually a reasonable tuning. It's just that the ear gain section there, where it rises up, it's shifted lower down. So this is more focused. I said this again in the review, but this is like, if you're going to take away anything from that, take away that the Radiance's tuning is more focused towards the fundamental tones rather than the resonant, overtone stuff. And that I'll make a video on this about why that matters, but it's something where it it can have the effect of making something sound more tonally rich, but it can also have the effect of making it sound a little congested, or compressed sounding, right? Depending on what you're listening to. And so in some ways, this may depend a little bit on the recording that you have. And then the other side of it is that it's also really, really non-fatiguing, and it's, easy to listen to for a long time. So I like that part about it. I just wish that it was a little more present there in the lower treble. And the rest of the treble is fine. Like there's no, it still is extended, and it's not like it rolls off like in any extreme ways. Because I think I saw another comment and someone is saying it sounds like a rolled off Elegia, or looks like a rolled off Elegia, and that's not true, because the treble comes back at 8K hertz and 910, on all the places where it should. It's fine. So
and that's, I'm excited to hear it once I do hear it. But I think that because for me the Elegia, like, I mean, I use the Elegia so much, which I showed you. Like, I use the things, like, I literally, it rubbed off all the writing on the cup.
Which is not good.
No. But I mean, to me, like, the Elegia was such a perfect office or on-the-go headphone. Like, because it's had the close back, you could turn off the people around you or things around you enough. But it wasn't enough in your face that you got distracted from the music with doing other things too. Like, it was just a great like perfect for that scenario, and like on the go in the office or just to tune out a little bit, and
I think the Radiance would fit the bill for an office headphone as well. And partially because I think it'll isolate better, because it's easier to get a seal if you're wearing glasses. When with the Elegia, that was the thing. Like, if you're wearing glasses, really thick arms, you'll break the seal and then you'll lose all the bass. With this one, it's not like that, both because the pads are leather, and it kind of like even if you just look at the way the pads are around the arm of the glasses, it kind of just folds around them and keeps the seal. So for starters, there's that benefit, but the other benefit is that even like regardless of the pads, the bass tuning for the Radiance is not dependent on the pads as significantly. Cool. That to me was the coolest thing about it, because with the Elegia, if you swap any other pads on other than the sheepskin solids, the bass is gone. There's no bass. So the bass tuning for the Elegia is done mostly from the pads. Whereas with the Radiance, you get the bass elevation regardless of the pads, and that it made a big difference, I think, for people who wear glasses and anybody who's struggling to get a good seal, because the bass won't disappear if you don't get a good seal, right? It's still dependent on it to a certain degree, but it's not like the Elegia in that sense.
And I'm just seeing in the chat too a little bit, like, people keep going back and forth about the ZMF versus the Radiance, and that equitable they are. Equitable.
Oh yeah.
But like I think that's two, like, I always call it two sides of a coin, right? You have the ZMF is like it's that niche, like, really beautiful handcrafted styling that's kind of like your it's wood. It's nice. It's wood. Something I want to hold in hand, and it's beautiful. It's handcrafted. And then the Focals is like the other side of that, where it's that modern, beautiful modern take on it. It's art to me too. Like, these are like, the Focals make some of the best looking headphones and gear in general, in my opinion. And then I think of the what's that aesthetic called? It's like there's the modern, and then there's the kind of like the handcrafted style, art style for like even homes and stuff. Like, what I'm talking about?
Rustic?
Like, rustic, yeah. But it's not even rustic. It's something else. It's like there's a better term. But anyways, like, that's what I think of it as. I think of them as like the two sides of the same kind of artistic, like, craft.
Right.
And I think that's what I think about the Focals. I think they're just, I mean, I can see why people would gravitate to them, because they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of the colorway, but like, they just look good on the head, and I wouldn't feel awkward walking around with them.
Well,
Boutique,
I mean, I might feel a little bit awkward because it's like expensive, and I don't. I like.
But most people wouldn't know that. Most people would be like, "Oh."
Actually, I gotta say, I mean, these. I'll hold it up to the camera here, but I like the leather, like the look of the leather, because this. You can't necessarily see it from the photos as easily, but you know how there's leather on the Stelia, like the outside of the cup. There's leather. They did the same thing for this one as well. It's a matte black leather.
Oh, that's nice.
And then they covered it with the pattern that's supposedly similar to the name stuff. Yeah. But I'll hold it up here so you can see. Try and get it so you can see. But underneath, there we go. Underneath the, come on, there we go. Underneath that sort of shinier pattern is is the leather, and to me it looks better than that of the Stelia because you don't. For people, what's that phobia called? Where like you're afraid of circles?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't think the Stelia does the trypophobia.
A little bit.
Okay, look up a picture of trypophobia. Be grossed out, and then tell me that looks like the Stelia.
A little bit.
I don't think that the Stelia looks like that. I think they're very different styles. I'll say that the Stelia, I think looks a bit more exuberant, flamboyant, maybe even a little bit.
Yep.
I love the Stelia sound. Not the biggest fan of the colors. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
I think they look a lot prettier in person.
Yeah, they're definitely better looking
on
in
pictures.
Yes, that is for sure.
They're very beautiful. I don't think it's for everyone. I think it looks more like a lifestyle product. I think
it is a lifestyle product. Yeah.
My only criticism with the Radiance's look is that I wish it were matte and not glossy.
Shine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
And just because, the Elegia is a matte look, and I love that about it. So to me, it's like if they had done the matte styling instead of the glossy, it would have been.
But the yokes are matte.
That's true. The yokes are, but if they'd done like the pattern like in a similar way to the yokes, that would have been
That would have been cool.
Yeah. But also,
like
it is more comfy too.
But it doesn't give it that nice contrast, that shiny contrast it has.
Yeah. Oh, someone says, how do you feel about the Bentley? How do you feel about the unfortunate Bentley logo? I mean, the Nouveau Riche feel. I don't care. Like, I don't own a Bentley. I know. Like, to me, that's. I saw so many comments about that, but like
that's a problem I have too. Though. Like we were talking about this randomly the other day, where I was like, oh, like if I just wish it didn't have the Bentley logo on it. But then I was just like, then you mentioned you're like, well, you would have a Bentley because you'd have those.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah. And then I was like, touche.
To me, I care not even a little bit about the Bentley logo because I have no opinion on Bentley. I have zero opinion.
Yeah, like
I feel like you have to.
I don't.
Yeah, I feel like you have to dislike. For some reason, you have to dislike Bentley, which. I don't dislike Bentley. I have nothing against Bentley.
Actually,
whatsoever.
I do. Well, no, just kidding. Bentley's are nice.
He's sitting there. It's like I had one and it didn't work. I drove it off a cliff.
Well, I like that they did that. It's fairly underdone. Like it's not super loud that it says Bentley on it or whatever. But actually, I'm always like, I don't know if it's because I'm younger or something, but whenever I see somebody driving a Bentley and they don't look like they're too far away from my age, I'm like, but you could have spent the same money on a Ferrari. That's the only thing I have against Bentley. I don't know. It's like. I don't know, but cool car, luxury versus cool cars.
Luxury versus
sports.
Yeah,
I know. Sorry, the most pointless comment I've ever made. This is my one.
See, I drive a Honda, and if it had a Honda logo on it, would I would I be more inclined? No. Like
really,
it doesn't matter to me at all that there's a Bentley logo on it. Like
actually, it looks. I think it looks really nice.
It does. I mean, I once you actually look at it, it does. It doesn't look bad. Like you can see it now, and it doesn't look bad. It's very subtle. It's in a spot where it's not really like something that's going to be like in your face. So I think it's fine, especially the more I look at it.
Somebody mentioned, actually, I think it was Rhino, about having Gucci on the side. Yeah, it's definitely not as loud as those fashion brands. It's not. It's very undertoned. I think it's not something that jumps at you.
And that's the other thing is that this is called Radiance for Bentley.
For Bentley, yeah.
That's I think the official name for it. So like, this is
a very special limited edition too.
Yeah,
like, it's not
Focal for Radiance by Focal
for Bentley. Yeah. Which I thought was an interesting way of
wording it.
Like, wording it. Because that's the other thing is like people need to think of this as a special edition. I think. Because this goes back to what we were talking about before, where a brand new Focal headphone coming out at $1,300 is exciting, and if you think of it as a special edition, then it maybe is less exciting for those of us who are not getting it specifically or not excited specifically for the the uniqueness factor, the special edition factor. But for anybody who specifically wants that kind of thing, then this nails it. It's the luxury version.
I haven't really kept up with automobile news, but is Bentley now using Focal speakers in their latest?
I would imagine there's some partnership there. I don't know what it is though.
Because that's the only thing that would make sense for me. Because it's like if they're using that. Yeah. If they're making the Radiance, but then they're using, I don't know, Fender speakers, I'd be like, what? or Harman Kardon speakers.
Yeah, it'd be Bang & Olufsen.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about that. I have to ask Chris. That's
Actually, I'm just gonna check Bentley's website.
because Kate, he told me I asked him like about car audio because I don't know anything about car audio, and
he's big in it.
That's his thing. And I asked him, I was like, if I send you the 2008 Honda Fit that I'm driving, would you be able to put some Focal speakers in it? And I think he said you could.
Yeah, he would.
Now, to me, it's like, I don't know why I would do that, because I'd spend more money on the speakers than the car.
Yeah,
but
I know plenty of people that do that though, so don't.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. And like the speakers in that car are particularly horrible. My 2008 Honda Fit, so it is something that I would like to upgrade. But I'm also thinking, well, if I just buy a new car, then maybe I don't need to. Put the nice speakers in a better car. That's probably what I should do. But
Production Rescue asks, how do the Radiance match up to the XCs?
Yeah. Oh, good question. Okay. So, let's imagine that you don't EQ anything. Surprisingly, the LCD XC is the best measuring Odyssey headphone that I've reviewed. Now, I'm not saying there aren't other. I think actually the LCD one measures better. But if you want it to match or get reasonably close to the Harman target, the XC is kind of like a brighter. It matches it reasonably closely, but then it's a little brighter there in the treble. And if you're treble sensitive, there's a risk that could be a little bit fatiguing. And the Radiance is kind of like the opposite of that, where it's like warmer in the treble with a more bass, presence there. But for technicalities, yeah, the XC is definitely better. The XC has more detail. It's for slam, actually the Radiance I think is better. Like for the dynamics, but not by much, because the XC definitely has it when you boost the bass to a similar level. And for soundstage, they're fairly similar, I think. Maybe slight edge to the XC, but it depends what you like. I'd said this as well. Like the soundstage for the Radiance is basically the same as the Elegia, but then it's because the tuning change, it's perceived a little bit differently. But yeah, I mean, the XC is also like twice the weight of the Radiance. It's like wearing two Radiances. So, to me, that's really what it comes down to. It's like, yeah, if you want the best technical performance, the XC is that for around this price point for a closeback, definitely the XC. There's nothing that even comes close to that. But the tuning may not be for everybody, because it's definitely the most like counterclockwise tilted. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it's got more. Well, just look at the frequency response, but it's got way more treble presence, and it's also got pinna gain. That's and ear-related gain, and none of the rest of the Odysseys do. So, at least for the ones, I shouldn't say that, because for the ones that I've evaluated, which is not all of them, I've only evaluated like a handful of them. The XC was the best frequency response out of the bunch, and that's the retuned one. So don't compare this with like the older pre-2016 ones that didn't measure all that well. Because I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, I've heard an XC and it wasn't good at all, and it's like, yeah, but that was the older the one before the retune. But which is, I mean, we should probably talk about that. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on the whole revision thing versus, like, should manufacturers make the revisions that they do to their headphones public?
Yeah.
Or should they just continue to do them and have them be silent?
It should definitely be public.
I think it should be public.
I think they should be louder about it. I don't mind revisions. Just be very clear about it.
Yeah.
So
that's all there is.
Transparent. Yeah, I agree. Transparency is key.
Because I mean, I don't want to be like suggesting strategies for headphone manufacturers, because I'm not one, and I don't. There's a lot of variables that I'm not, considering. Because if you think about what the perception might be from a casual public audience to, oh, I bought this one before you did the revision, and so it's been changed, and I got the same headphone, but it's not as good as the one that was revised. Like, that sucks.
That sucks.
I think that but in many of these cases, I think the long-term benefits for the good name of the brand, it would go a long way to build
that rapport and that trust and what have you
with the community when you make it public.
The problem is getting the old stock out.
And it's a real nightmare for dealers. I was talking to one of my friends about this, who's a dealer, and yeah, it's a nightmare if you're sitting on a whole bunch of old stock, right? Of older revisions. How do you clear that out?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe that's one of the reasons why they don't make it public, like for manufacturers.
Yeah, there's two sides of the coin here, of course. But yeah.
I mean,
I wish they were like, if they were revisions, they were not monumental enough to where you couldn't upgrade like certain parts of an existing headphone. Like, if it's pads, just swap the pads.
If it is just pads, then
give a discount for the new pads and
something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's not always that. Like, I know that in some cases there were driver tensioning changes and things like that. Actually, that happened with the final D8000 versus the D8000 Pro, where instead of doing a revision, they just made a Pro version. They just had a new model.
But that's what they should do, though. I think that's what
better then.
Elnick just mentioned it too. Like he said, like if they're gonna do like a hardware change, like it's a definitive, you cannot fix this yourself on your own, or get cut like a head pads. Get pads to do it. Then,
technically, head pad is correct.
Yeah, well, touche, fair enough. Yeah. But if it's a hardware revision, like you said, the tensioning of the driver, or like a different slight tweak to the actual driver that someone at home couldn't get that part, you know what I mean? Then I think it should be a V2 or like a maybe. Do something like that. I mean, it sucks. It does suck for manufacturers because now it's confusing. It's which version do you have? Like, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm also coming out from a customer's perspective, not necessarily a with the
D8000 Pro though. They did increase the price by a couple $100, but still, it's a strategy that I think works in the long run because, anybody who got the original D8000 isn't going to be disappointed because at least, well, it works out for everybody. I mean, maybe they're like, oh, I wish I'd known that, ahead of time and bought the D8000 Pro. But then at the same time, it adds another SKU for them on the shelf, right? Mm-hmm. Like it adds another product there that they can say, this is for this customer, this is for this customer. And you don't have to, again, this is just like, I don't know enough about business strategy for this kind of thing. But to me, that was the best way of doing it. Mm-hmm. They could have just come up with a revision and been like, yeah, it's the same headphone, but not.
But better.
yeah. And then
if they announce it, people are not get for the time. If it's before the release of a revision, the time leading up to the revision, they won't be getting any sales. No stock will be going out because nobody would buy something if they know it's
sit.
Yeah.
Well, you have to make it like a surprise. We did a revision.
That's true.
Yeah. Right. 2.0 on the.
But imagine the retailers who like say a product's really popular, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Sundara gets a revision. Like dealers
there's never been a revision to the Sundara ever.
Dealers get ordered like 100 units, say, and then overnight they're like, yes, revision. What do they do with that? It's like,
now there's
it's a really complicated sort of
new product, and then it's like, what do you do with it?
Yeah, it's a tough. I don't know what the answer is, but there
are all your.
That's a thing. But also like with Odyssey's approach to this is, I mean, they're constantly doing revisions to stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And it seems like a thing with planars in general, where there's just, and maybe it's not planars, or maybe it's just more the more boutique brands, I guess, where things are more like handcrafted or handmade, or there's more, ability for that kind of thing to happen. But we've seen it with Hifiman, we've seen it with Odyssey, and Odyssey's approach is to just say, well, okay, revisions are revisions, and we're going to make them because we're always trying to improve things. Mm-hmm. That to me is like, at the very least, there's a little bit of recourse there. Yeah. Because as much as it sucks for the customer, there's a little bit of like, they're being honest and transparent. And I think Odyssey, as much as they do revisions probably more than anybody else, they're also the ones that are the most transparent about it, and I think it goes a long way. Mm-hmm. As frustrating as it is for those of us.
And I think that they usually do detail what the revisions are in their blog post on their website, pretty sure. So, they do say stuff where they don't just mysterious things that happened overnight and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
What's your guys' take? So I've been thinking about this, and I'm not a scientist by any means, or any kind of material scientist or engineer or that kind of jazz.
Dr. Tyler.
Why, thank you. No, but no, like, because to me, like, just thinking about magnets, right? Just purely magnets.
I have thoughts about magnets a lot. I sit up late at night and I'm just like,
I just
do we go with
rub them on my
neodymium
head.
N52 or N50? What's better here?
but each magnet has a unique power pole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't that potentially be an issue with? And maybe that's why. And this is just me totally just being random, but like would that be a factor in revisions too? Like maybe they got a new batch of magnets that doesn't have the same.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like the same power capabilities is because there's a whatever reason the rare earth magnet is in that batch just happened to be not quite as strong, or I don't know. Like that's.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like for magnets specifically with
I don't
with the variability of that, because
don't they get graded and then
they are.
stock?
They're graded by like.
But there's
that's
still
what
a
I'm saying,
variance,
N52.
though, right? There's still like a.
No, but then it would show up in the grade usually.
Yeah,
because you could say N50 is not as good as N52, at least for neodymium, like those magnets that they're putting in planars. But the other thing as well is there are so many other variables, because this is, again, I always go back to my conversation with Fang Bian, which was one of the most interesting conversations I've had in this whole hobby, where he was saying how like we key in on certain things in the media, in the digital media world. We key in on certain things like the magnets specifically, or like the magnet structure, or the double-sided versus single-sided. But there are so many other parameters that we're not factoring into the design, and it all matters, including the glue, the adhesive, all that stuff.
Because that all affects acoustics.
So if you have a different type of adhesive, is this going to change the frequency response? And the answer is probably. Right? So like
everything will have a variance to it, right? Everything will have a factor.
Yeah, or even in the case of the some of the like the Hifiman Aria revision that happened, they changed the dust cover, the color of the dust cover. and got rid of the paint that they painted on the magnets, and that did change the frequency response because it's that sensitive. Now it didn't change it a lot. They purple. They messed up. maybe a special Tyler.
Would have gotten a better
sound. Better sound.
Yeah. But like, and it didn't change the frequency response that much. Like if you look at the curve, it's really close, but just a tiny little bit in certain areas. So that minimal of a change can have that much of an effect. And so if maybe that's something where you don't feel the need to publish it as a official revision, because it's such a minor change that also you couldn't have foreseen. Like if you weren't actively trying to improve something, if that was just because
it's just
like a byproduct of what
what's available for you to make the headphone,
manufacture each process, then like maybe you don't. But at the same time, if it's a significant enough of a change, then I think it should matter. You should, or then I think it's like if you. In the case of the Aria, I can understand them not publishing that one, because the curve is. It's same with if they did anything else to the like any of the other headphones in that lineup. If the change isn't significant enough, from the frequency response and sound quality, then maybe you don't publish that. Yeah. But like with the Sundara, they probably should have, because. Well, at least I'm going to say that. I'm still dealing with the headaches from that. Just because there are so many other people.
Stop right there.
No, but it's worth talking about, because there are so many people now who are measuring Sundaras, but they're old Sundaras. And so it's not representative of what you would be buying if you were buying one today. Yeah. So I need to get another Sundara up to do another measurement of it to confirm that what's in stock now at retail stores, at retailers, is going to be the same as what I'm measuring on this one that I have behind me right now.
When I did the Sundara review, I kept getting quite a few questions about, can you pull out a measuring tape and measure the front and back of the pads, please? I was like,
but they are different. The pads are different.
Yeah. No, I just don't. The thing is, I couldn't even confirm it because I don't remember the dimensions of the original ones. And I just remember the first time I tried a Sundara was like a year and a half ago.
Right.
I didn't like it.
Because that was the older, probably.
If there was a revision, then yes, I didn't like it. And then I tried one earlier this year, and I was like, well, this is fantastic.
There you go.
So,
and this lines up with what Metal 571 said as well. He'd heard them before and was like, and then heard that one back when he did his review in like December. I don't remember exactly when it was. And he was like, wow, this is he said think his words were, "I was sleeping on this one." But yeah, the tuning is different. And I think it's enough where it matters. We're talking about gaining quite a bit of bass extension, and then also not having an upper mid-range shout or mid-range shout. That matters, I think.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, even when I took it out of the box, the pads looked different from what I remember. But the thing is,
I remember you pointing that out. Yeah, you had pictures of it. Yeah,
they looked different, but I can't confirm that it's just the pads that is responsible for whatever the tuning change was, because I didn't have them I didn't have them both at the same time. So I had what happened was I had two of the original version, and they both measured the same. And this was back when I had the ears rig and whatnot. And then I, after that, had the newer revision, which I also measured on the ears rig, the same rig, and it measured differently, and the pads look different. So it's not, in my mind, it's like it can't be just unit variation. It's most likely not unit variation unless this was super lucky. But we also then don't know if it's just the pads that are responsible for changing this, because it could have been the case that they just changed the pads for reliability reasons,
or even just got a new manufacturing
material
process.
Yeah, exactly,
like
right.
Yeah,
and it's not actually the pad change that's doing this. It could be that they did something with the driver way back, like a couple of years ago, and this is just now stock levels catching up.
Yeah,
so
it's funny. Like, there's also those things like this. Crazy how that all works out like that. Because there's that too, like the factor of what if it's just literally just a pad, like the new pads they just got a better process for getting new materials and ready to rock,
Well, we would have to, the only way to confirm that would be we get an old Sundara that we know is an old Sundara.
Take apart the pad and take apart the new pad. Yeah.
Yep, put it back together.
Have them side by side, pads swapping across. And then also we got to figure out if the pads that you buy from Hifiman's site, will that have an effect? We don't know what that is either. So, yeah. True.
Crazy.
And it's because of that I would wish that in those cases manufacturers are not more transparent, but just like make a note of this, at least publicly, to be like, hey, we've changed certain things. But I can also understand why they don't. I can understand.
It's a massive, like, especially if it's something that doesn't massively change the sound signature, or even if it's just like you said, like it's just a color difference from the material or something like.
Yeah. I saw an earlier question. When are we going to get a review of the Odin?
Oh yeah.
So probably next week, something like that. And then after, if you want, like, so what will happen? What will happen is we'll probably also have multiple people reviewing it. So we'll have multiple takes on that, like written reviews and stuff. I'm not sure. I think Precogvision is also in line for getting to hear that one too. So, but yeah, actually on the revision side of things, is in the IEM world, have you encountered that at all, Precog?
Yes, definitely. Actually, with the audio stuff, actually, the Legacy 3.
Okay.
The first one I heard, it wasn't very good. Just let's just put it that way. And Anthony Android, he was saying he loved it. I was like, man, what are you talking about? It sounds totally muffled. It's like the treble goes off.
Different unit from yours.
Yeah, he had a different unit, exactly. Okay. And mine was one of the earlier ones. And then he had I think Ant had 3 units, and they all measured differently. And so then he sent me his unit, and even though I didn't have the old one still, I could tell that it definitely sounded better than the previous one. And it just it really threw me for a loop, because I just find that happens often, I guess. But yeah,
I think there was also some revisions with this. But maybe it's not revisions, or it's just unit variation. It could be.
I don't think that's strictly revision so much as it might just be unit variation. But I guess I haven't heard a revision then in terms of IEMs.
Like a deliberate one.
Yeah, exactly.
Be interesting. It probably happens. I mean, that's just the nature of, I think, these things too, right? Like as time goes on, maybe they just do a little bit tweak, or I said, there's new manufacturing, there's new,
See, I like what Campfire Audio did though with that, because they with their like the Andromeda, right?
V1, V2, V3, and then they just came out.
Yeah, and they know they had the special edition as well, right? So like they had revisions to the Andromeda they were doing, and they were like, how do we present this? And they did it with official,
like special editions, and they converted that special edition into the next version.
Yeah, and so this allows the digital media folks like us to be like, oh, this version sounds like this version sounds like this, and then we can communicate to people. At least it helps us in that sense. But yeah, there is also that question about dealers and stock levels, and how do you how do you deal with that?
It also helps if they're all like, even though there's variants, there's still a reason to get the older one. I think that's kind of cool. If you can, you know what I mean? If it's like, if it's still good, it's just now there's a different thing that's maybe different, not necessarily better.
Yeah. But people like the latest and greatest,
Yeah, that's true.
I do think if you can make it so that the older revision, say a new revision comes out or something, you say, okay, this is the new revision. I think you have a couple choices. One is you can just make it cost more until the old revision is gone.
Yeah.
or you can discount the old revision a little bit.
And that's the thing.
I think this will
bring
make
the price
more
down.
sense.
Bring the price down for the older revision and call it the classic, or whatever. Like, I mean, and I can say this too. Like
the classic.
It's a good one.
Sundara classic.
Sundara classic. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Oh, geez, I just gave away $1 million idea. Damn it.
Yeah. Should hire you.
I'm pretty sure Odyssey already had that with the LCD2 Classic.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right.
True. But like for me, like the Andromeda 2020, for instance, like I think that's fantastic IEM, but I still miss the sparkle or the treble high from the V2, V3, V1 even, like, right? Like I think like, so there's something to be said about the 2020. I think is a better overall IEM, but I still like there's something to be said about having that sparkle that it has. There's like, I don't know.
I know what you mean. We had we've talked that subject to death probably, but boring somebody. But we actually had some other topics as well that we haven't even gotten to yet. I wanted to ask. Okay, here. This is what it is. It was the subject of headphones that sound good in spite of the fact that they don't measure well, and then also the flip side of that is headphones that sound bad in spite of the fact that they measure good. And I have some thoughts on that, but I want to ask Theo if he's come across that in IEMs. Of course, it's a little bit more challenging as well for IEMs because we don't necessarily have as standard of a reference curve. So what's your take on that for the measurements versus?
Honestly, not really with IEMs. I can kind of like tell that there's something off with it if the frequency doesn't line up with expectations. But yeah, I'm sure it definitely happens though, and especially even more so with headphones, like you were talking about with the Radiance, I think earlier, and I just haven't come across it yet personally.
Well, Kryn and I were talking about this a while ago in one of the earlier streams we did, but where I'd asked about why is it that with IEMs you have a far wider range of impressions, or like there's a lot more disagreement about how something sounds.
Yeah, that too. I've noticed that.
And he made a really good point about how the reason for this is that because we're not with IEMs, we're not dealing with as many gain factors. The manufacturer has to assume what the gain factors would be for the person, right? So with headphones, you only really have to assume. I mean, apart from the fact that people's ears are shaped differently and we have different HRDF. All you really have to assume if you're doing over your headphones, I say all, but it's more, right? So there's more already there for your physical ear. So you only really need to assume preference stuff like room and angle and that kind of stuff. Whereas with IEMs, you have to assume what would be normal, what the brain would expect to hear for a person's ear, the outer ear and everything else. So that makes it more challenging to tune it, but then also it's also probably why there's so much more variance.
You get a lot of variety because of that, I think.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I mean, if you could identify a specific, we probably asked you this before, but if you could identify a specific IEM that would be kind of like your reference curve, what would that be?
I know it
probably
is.
Just the U12T with more bass on it. I mean, like
so the 64 Audio Neo.
yeah. just like bass. That's all there is to it, man.
Yeah. This is why you hated the Campfire Ara.
The Ara.
Ara, what?
Issues like the.
Ada.
Like the ear compensation, I could tell it was like it was what is it? What 1.5 kHz? So everything just sounded really distant in the mid range, and just not in a good way.
Because of the cut after, I think it's after 2 kHz.
It also dips after that.
There's
a
a
upper
dip
mid range as well.
Yeah.
And that's really noticeable. It just bothers me a little.
I have to quote Kryn. He described it as the wibbly wobbly mids, which I thought was the best description of frequency response. I like the Ara,
about it too much because I know exactly, you like it, and I'm sure that there are a lot of other people who like
Marvy
it as well.
from SBAF likes it. But it's definitely
I think it just lends itself to more
different genres.
Exactly.
But so your reference curve would be like a U12T, you're saying, with a little more bass. And then like, I mean, you'd said as well though that you didn't quite like the Blessing 2 as much. Like the Blessing 2 didn't necessarily fit your ideal, response curve. And for a lot of people it does, which I thought was interesting.
Very good tuning, the Blessing 2.
Yeah.
It's still a little tinny though, or lean in the highs to me for the Blessing 2.
It is.
Yeah,
it's
like
really lean.
And
then
it's not as well extended in the
Mm-hmm.
But it's good. I mean, but that's me being super critical of a thing that's for the price performance.
So
it's
you got to
holy
take
crap.
into account the price every time. Like for $300, it's on another level.
Yeah. But yeah, like with that's an example of something that we know that it's, let's say, okay, objectively measures well, as much as we can say objectively in this sense, because again, we don't have IEMs and reference curves. It's not as significant of a thing, or it's not as well recognized thing. But let's say, for most people, we can say like the Blessing 2 measures quite well. At the very least, we could say that. But then it's something where you personally know that it's not to your tuning preference. And I think there are probably going to be other people as well that fit into that category, where it's not to their tuning preference. And even just, I know Taryn doesn't like the Harman curve all that much for over-ear headphones. So like, I know that's there's a lot of examples like that. But I did want to just mention, at least for over-ear headphones, I tend to think that the measurements do line up with the subjective experience to a certain degree. Like, I do think that maybe not perfectly in all cases, but at least below 10k hertz on standardized measurement rigs, it lines up reasonably closely with the way that I hear stuff. And so to me, like, if something measures really well, like relative to that reference curve, at the very least, I will like that about it. Mm-hmm. But the flip side of this is that there are definitely examples of headphones that don't measure all that well relative to that target that I also do enjoy. So I think that's what I find more commonly. It's not about, I don't like it when it matches the target perfectly. Because if it matches the target reasonably well, I generally do like it. Like, I generally am able to get into the tuning. But it's only when, like, in the flip side, there's times when I'm thinking of any specific examples, but like, headphones that are a little more relaxed in the upper mids, for example, that doesn't match the target, but there's a good chance that I like it still, So just because it doesn't perfectly match the target curve there, it doesn't mean I'm not going to like it. And I think there's also room for this, because in some areas where it doesn't match the target, it can be better or worse, right? Like, if something it deviates really strongly at 8.5 kHz, that is so much worse for me than if something deviates at 5k hertz, or
and maybe like that's a
400
different thing
hertz
for each person, right? Like, maybe there's a certain frequency.
Exactly.
Where it's all of a sudden that will be your thing. Where it's like like everyone's like, what are you talking about?
8.5k hertz is just, I can't deal with peaks at 8.5k hertz at all.
That'd be interesting to try out and check out, like, to try and like find each of ours. Like,
where are we most sensitive?
Yeah, like what's our issue, like in the future? And I will say, like, to me, like, here's a good question in that space. For me, like, I would think that the SR, where am I at here? It's right there. The SR1A.
Yes.
That one does. I mean, because that's how hard. That's a really impossible thing to measure on a regular, right? Like, I mean, unless you have the ear like simulator or a head and torso simulator, maybe. But, anyways, that's beside the point. What's your thoughts on like hearing a thing first before seeing measurements and going, this is like decent. But then you see a measurement because
that's a really good question.
And then
it changes
your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that, because I've seen that happen on different forums and stuff all the time too, where people are like, "This is great." I mean, even I am subject to that. Like where I was like, "Guy," and I'm not even a big measurement guy, but I'll be like, "Whatever, this sounds great." And then so I'll see a measurement curve, and be like, "Okay," and then I'll see like the little like thing. I'm like, and then I'll focus on that, and I'll be like, "Okay, well, am I hearing that?" And then I'll hear
psychological, man.
Yeah, like what's the thing, right? Like it's such a.
So being the resident, measure snob person here, we have a different term for that, but I don't want YouTube. Yeah. To me, I think people scrutinize measurements incorrectly for starters. Not incorrectly, but like they'll take a fine-grained look at they'll evaluate a fine-grained frequency response measurement on a raw graph relative to a coarse-grained target, and that introduces problems where it's never going to look as good as, you know what I mean? Like you could look at any measurement of any headphone, and there's only going to be like 3 of them that actually measure well. If you're doing that, if you're looking at, and I think that's the problem, is that most people are doing this when they're looking at measurements. They're scrutinizing the fine-grained response that they get, and they're not approaching
pulling back and looking.
Yeah, they're not approaching it the right way, and so on that front, I think it's easy to there's a mismatch between what your psychology is doing when you see the measurement and what your experience is when you're listening to the headphone. And because of that, I think in most cases, the results are going to be a little bit skewed, and we're more likely to actually be able to enjoy the headphone if we have no sense of what the measurements are, because we're not dealing with that additional psychological factor. But when you do look at this in a more, let's say, I don't know how to frame this, but like in a more like reasoned approach, where you know exactly where the dips and stuff should be, and you think about the overall tonal balance and stuff like that, I tend to think that, if you hear, even if you like something, the way that something sounds, you can hear where the deviations are.
Yeah, like the CMF verite close, I can hear that.
Yeah, and you might just not be paying attention to those deviations until you see where those deviations are in a frequency response graph, and you go, "Oh yeah, okay, it does match." Now the question is, did that ruin the headphone for you? And I think but for some people,
some people it does. Yeah. That's what I get. Yeah, like some people are like,
I've seen it happen that somebody likes a headphone, and then they see the measurements, like, oh, I don't like that squiggly. Or they start, you hear them say something good, and then next they see a measurement, it's just like, well, did I like it? But for me, it was the other way around for the Stelia. Actually, I had seen the measurements.
You'd already colored your opinion of it.
It was sort of preconditioned to being like, well, that looks odd, but then I listened to them and I was like, well,
these sound fantastic.
I think these sound fantastic, and there's not really much I would change about them. Everything's pretty. I mean, and I even got Tyler to try the EQ.
It's true.
Tyler used EQ.
Thanks for putting me on blast, man. I thought we were friends.
And he said it's subtle.
It is. It's very subtle. It was super subtle.
Which means that was actually a headphone that I found didn't sound at all like it measured. I thought it need tons of EQ and whatnot.
Yeah. And that's something where, I've seen a lot of people have mixed opinions about the Stelia, but for the people who've heard it, most of them tend to think that it sounds just fine.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quite like the HDA20, which without measurements I put it on, I was like, well, it sounds sort of off. Whereas the Stelia was like, why am I not hearing anything that's off immediately? At least when the things.
Hey Chrono, did you break your camera by pulling the connector out? People want to know.
No.
Sorry,
No,
I had
this is
to
not-
interrupt. I had to interrupt.
This is not the Sony.
It's a nice thing with
Z800, don't worry
with
about it.
the Stelia, the nice and all the Focal headphones is that the connectors you don't have to worry too much about. Yeah.
It popped right
Guys,
Yeah.
don't worry. The camera is safe and sound. It's just that the
Actually,
battery decided to not work, or rather, to run out of battery. So I'm just giving you a little bit of time to charge, and I promise I'll turn it on before the stream.
Well, yeah, turn it on now. Might as well. You probably got enough charge there. Yeah, I mean, with the Stelia as well. Like one of the things I think, even with the Radiance as well, one of the things Focal seems to be really good at doing is, tuning certain frequency ranges to have decent balance, with one another. And maybe one headphone's a little more bright leaning, one's a little bit more warm. This one's definitely more warm leaning, but the smaller frequency ranges are still well tuned. So, in this case in particular, like for the Radiance, this is the easiest Focal headphone to EQ, by far, because all you have to do is add a 4 dB or 4.5 dB at 5.5 kHz with a very wide Q value, and that's it. I mean, then obviously to your preference, and you change stuff up. Hey, we got.
Hey,
and now
Right
we're
on.
facing each other. It was your fault this whole time, Precog. It was...
Hold on. I'm joining the party. Yeah, I'm joining the party. Hold on.
And now we're all gonna get jacked up and we're all gonna be facing away from each other.
All right, guys, this is Trans Game. So this is the end of this
There we
stream.
And we did. We all separate. Well, no, you are now.
Stella,
And
It's
now
not a
we're
game
facing
over
each
here.
other in my.
Yes, that
Oh,
is
perfect.
Let me.
Yeah, the camera finally happened.
That's perfect. That's classic.
Yeah. You guys are looking great. We should do this more often.
Yeah, look at that. Some handsome Dells make us oldies look.
Yeah. Oh, Android's in the chat. What's up, Android? Okay, so we should probably. Oh, I wanted to. Apart from just finishing up on Chrono's thought here, apart from the fact that you just like the Stelia, what's your? I know you're doing a review, and you've got a review written already, which will be published today. What's
That's
your?
on the
what's
forums if anybody's curious.
Yeah. That's great.
What's your general take on the Stelia? We are Focal boys today. Look at that.
Yeah, we got the Focal
Except for-
gang over here.
He's using the Focal branded Apple AirPods.
Yeah, Focal
Wait, are they AirPods?
AirPods. Theo, he's rocking them.
I love the AirPods, man.
So hot take.
I wear my AirPods actually. Hot take on the Stelia. Well, it's fantastic.
It's just fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Well, it's not as weird as it looks on graphs. I guess that's the first thing. I already said that, so that's kind of boring. Really punchy, like really punchy.
Mm-hmm.
You said it was even too much dynamics for you.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
I didn't know was a thing.
If I'm not focusing on the music, right? Like if
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, writing the review or playing games, it was like, it was borderline distracting, I think. But if you're listening to music, it makes them really energetic, really fun to listen to, very engaging. And then the mids have this not weird, but like this sonorous kind of quality, especially for brass instruments, because a lot of the resonances that are there are slightly amplified for those instruments. I thought they sounded fantastic.
I love a brass with these.
Yeah. The bass for me is just a little. The sub bass is a little bit too much for me, but I think it's just it has a little bit of warmth, very enjoyable, fun headphone, very exciting headphone to listen to.
We lost Theo.
Oh, whoops. I was moving around on my iPad.
Right on. So overall, you like it for the Stelia?
Oh yeah, I think it's great.
We got to get Theo to try some over your
Let's
headphones.
try to get him some.
Eventually, yeah. I have a DAC amp thingy on loan right now, so maybe I can make use of that. That would be nice, actually.
Which one is it?
I think it's an old one. It's like an Audio GD or something.
Oh, okay.
It's like an 1128. I don't know what it is actually, but
yeah,
it'd be good to get some use out of it.
For sure.
Yeah, DACs, good DACs and amps are getting so cheap these days.
Yeah, they're borrowed entry. That's a good thing, honestly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Like, I've looked at some of the prices for like the good stuff, and it's like, oh man.
Yeah, it's tough to really get. I mean, I was saying this like a while ago, but it's tough to get really excited about the really expensive DACs and amps because the inexpensive stuff is getting so good these days that the difference between them is so insignificant compared to the price that you pay. Meaning you really have to be set on your headphones. Like you got to be like, right, this is the one for me.
Yeah.
I agree. Like synergy and stuff like that too.
Choosing headphones is hard in general, and then you also add amps and synergies.
Yeah.
The answer's
it can get really complicated really fast.
Terrence says, Precog, we've sent you all those IEMs and you're using AirPods with them. It's probably because of the microphone.
Yeah,
convenience.
That's what it is.
Yeah, they're so convenient. I use AirPods all the time, actually.
So you got to use like other
them.
64 audio IEMs and then just use the microphone from the AirPod.
I know.
Hold your own.
I don't know how you do that with an iPad.
But, interesting.
Yeah. Should we take some questions from the chat?
Yeah, it's rocking.
We're going for about over an hour and a half now. So
yeah.
I see the overheat warning on my camera, but it's probably just because it's really warm in here right now. The door closed.
Mine's probably close to running out of battery again. Speaking from experience.
Yeah.
Resolve. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, Resolve, you already missed the Cayenne amp. I still have it. I didn't give that one away. But actually, the headphone giveaway went great, and he's really excited. The winner is really excited. So yeah,
it's very, very cool.
Let's see. Any questions? Guys, if you have questions, post them in the chat now. We probably missed a lot of your guys' questions from earlier. So
questions is the time.
It looks like everyone's just having a good time chatting and listening. So, but
there was a lot of talk about magnets and radiation.
Yeah, max radiation,
cancer from magnets.
So
radiation from like planars and stuff, or
the magnets.
No, just headphone magnets.
Yeah.
Here we go, Tyler. T4 amp. What are your thoughts? Best pairings.
I love the thing, man. Like
that's Eddie.
No, it's the ECP. The ECP T4. It's Bizarres. Is the only place you can get it, and it's a very apparently they have no parts to make more, and so they're trying to source parts now. So I was like one of the last like 2 people to get one. So it sucks because it's like it's a fantastic amp. Before that was the Ravenswood they had. That was not there. Yeah, it's different amps, but they're similar. This one has it's a hybrid. It's got I don't want to show you guys my desk. It's a mess. I just moved everything around.
But you're going to.
I'm going to anyways. All right. There we are. So there it is. And so that's you see the tubes up there, and you can kind of see it there, the little purple. So I did a custom thing where I asked for a purple LED. It's very subtle. It's very nice.
Of course.
Yeah. It looks really nice.
But you like it.
Oh man, it is. I mean, I don't know if you noticed. I have no other amps outside of my SR1A YR on my desk right now. So it's I literally moved all my other amps off, and I'm only using this. And I'm using it with the Focals. I use it with my ZMFs. I do have to actually move an amp back over because I did just get this lovely thing, the Terran Special.
Oh yeah.
So
those are beautiful.
These are the
ones. Ocean blue.
Yeah, Terran actually did the custom on this, so he did the.
Oh really?
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so he did the mix on those. So but the problem with these though is it only comes with 3.5. So like.
There we go. Hey, that worked great.
Let's focus.
Yeah.
And so so I need to move over some stuff and
the sockets are inset, like you have to like those cables they go far into the socket. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, they go really far in.
Yeah, they go real far in. So you have to get like let's see if I can get these in. Kind of like because they're.
I think there are some aftermarket cables that do work.
I just personally don't have any.
You know what works in them?
After the HD100 trauma that I have, I was really worried that I had already ruined the Rad Zero because I put them in, and they felt like they clicked, and they looked like they went far in, but there wasn't any sound. That I realized you just gotta
just Chrono and connectors. It's just
It's rough out there, man. It's rough out there.
Actually, one cable that does work with that is the Hifiman 3.5s. Now, the cables for those are not they're the surgical tubing cables, not this one. Surgical tubing cables, but they do fit with the connectors. So if you had a balanced one from a Hifiman connector, that would work. But yeah, okay.
I do have, I think so, but
yeah. Sorry, I see some more questions here from the chat.
There's one, the Stelia versus Elegia for low volume background music at the office. Is the Elegia too much if I need to focus on work to be done? Elegia's gets out of the way. I think at low volume, not really. It's something that kind of like that dynamic thing that I mentioned kind of scales, but even because I did find that even when listening to it was mostly if it was in the bass, because again, it has like that sort of sub bass emphasis, and even listening to like jazz, you would hear some really low, bass tones, and they would like kick like pretty hard, and that I found that a little distracting. But I think if you turn the volume down, it would have been bad.
I mean, that is one of the Elegia's strengths as well. I find is that at low volumes in an office setting. I mean, that was what I was using it for, right?
Yeah, but I also find that these kick a lot harder than the Clear and the
Oh
Elegia.
They will definitely, yeah. I should
be in the QC team for headphones.
Any reason why you don't review electrostatics? This is like, I've seen this like a number of times where I think there's a perception that like we hate electrostatics, but
there was a comment of that on the HCH20 video.
It's I have nothing. I like electrostatics. I like the ones that like the SR007 2.9 is amazing. It's just that I don't have the opportunity to, because it's hard to get them in, because you can't just run it off a regular amplifier. You need the whole system there. So, or you need an energizer or something like that. So eventually I'll be doing some E-stat reviews. I have nothing against E-stats. I think it's great. Okay, so let's see. When's the Elegia earpad comparison coming? There isn't really one. You just use the Elegia pads. The Dakoni sheepskin solids do work. They're the only other ones that I would recommend throwing on the Elegia. But I still prefer the Elegia pads overall. I'll post the measurements of the Dakoni sheepskin solids on the Elegia on the forum. So if you guys want to, I'll post it in the Elegia thread. So if you guys want to check that out, go there.
And I did see something about that too. Somebody else was talking about that. They took a recommendation for that, and they said that they love them. Like that was their.
They do boost the bass, for sure. But like, it's with all that stuff. It's like
it's gonna change something. You have to find your preference and go.
And also like I wasn't changing it without EQ either. Like I was changing it for the reason of making it easier to EQ, and I didn't find like I don't think that it's uniquely better for that. It's just that you get more bass by default, which is great, I guess. But let's see.
Sorry, I wasn't snickering at you. I was snickering at Android's questions.
Oh yeah, that's all good. You can snicker at me. I don't get offended if you snicker at me. I see. Okay, there's a question here about the T5 Gen 3, Bayer Dynamic T5 Gen 3. And no, I haven't heard it. I don't know. Have you? Any of you guys heard it? No.
That's the low ohm one, right?
It is, and everybody who I've talked to who's heard it hates it. Every single person. So as much as I mean, maybe I will review it, but it's not something I'm getting up in the morning excited about. I'm not like, let's get that T5 Gen 3, because so far early reports are not encouraging. We did talk about the HD 560S.
What about Chrono's DT880 600 ohm versus the 990 Pro and the Tiger for gaming? Sorry.
Those are all Bayer Dynamic headphones, right? The 600 ohm DT880, which one? Because I saw the question earlier, so I started looking it up to see if maybe I could get one in for review, but it was, is it the premium that people...
Well, there's Pro and there's Premium.
Yeah, because there's this Pro, there's also a Studio model. I don't know what the differences are, or which one's which. And then the Tiger I haven't heard. I heard the 990. I reviewed the 990 on my old channel. So I don't know. Which one is it? Is it the Studio? Which 880?
And also in general, the DT880 600 ohm is probably decent, and the DT990 is probably pretty peaky and sibilant. But maybe for gaming, that could be desirable.
Yeah, maybe that is first-person shooters. Trouble is your friend. Actually, that's what I find.
Yeah.
Theo, real quick, I have a quick random question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
What do you use to carry your DAP and IEM around with?
What do I use to carry them around with?
Yeah, your IEMs just randomly.
He's like my hands.
Like, I have these I bought these cases off of some store online, but they're like metal cylinder, the hockey puck ones that you, because I just abuse my stuff, unfortunately. So yeah, but I honestly just throw them in my backpack. So
yeah,
fair enough.
I just throw them right in there. But I know that there's those pouches from like Van Nuys and stuff that Rush is always shilling that stuff. Yeah. I've looked at it, but I don't think I need something like that, honestly.
You're not gonna do the clips on the belt or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll pass on that.
Have you tried, like, what's your go-to, like, do you use a DAP or do you use like I mean, we've talked about this before, but you said, or do you use the phone dongle?
Use dongle.
What's your name?
DX160.
DX1. Okay, I've recently been using the DX160 more, and the reason why I wasn't using it that much was because I couldn't get it to work as just a regular DAC for the computer, like just with a as a USB DAC, even though it has that function.
You tried to do something. Okay.
And I couldn't get it to work. It wouldn't show up. And then I did some digging, and it turns out that it doesn't work with the cable that comes with it as a USB DAC. Yeah, you have to use. I have the pink one here.
I want the pink one. You have a pink one.
It's in the box. Yeah, but you need a really short USB-C cable to be able to make it work as a USB DAC. And it like, I was so frustrated trying to figure this out because I had all these other USB cables. I was like, why is this not working? Is this like
that might be what happened to me too? I just went to the Sennheiser store and tried to plug it into one of the things, and it wouldn't work. It
seems weird to me that they would like not include a cable, like the right cable for that.
It's kind of vexing.
But I really like them. They're
like, personally, I just use it for the sound. Honestly, I don't think the user interface and stuff like that is all that great. But
it's way slower than a phone.
Yeah. The sound is definitely what you're there for on the DX160.
Yeah. And for most other situations, the dongle is good enough.
Yeah. As much hate as it gets.
Yeah. I know that's Corinne's favorite source. So.
Yeah.
No, I'm not throwing shade. Let's see. We got some more questions in the chat here. What's your favorite micro SD card for portable audio?
That's what I was laughing at earlier. That's what I was. Sony, man. High def, only one. Am I right? Am I right?
Are you listening on your camera? No. I assume he's joking. I don't know if that's.
No, I think there's a thread. Of
there's a meme going around.
Yeah.
In
oh, really?
Headphone threads.
Yeah.
Like people are discerning differences between
and burn it, right?
Different SD cards.
And there was a
you got to burn in your SD card.
Yeah, you had to burn in your SD card. Like, you had to load it up with stuff, delete it off, and load it up and delete it, reformat it like 5 times before it sounded proper. And like, it was like, what? Like, it was so confusing. Yeah.
But what if the weak point in your chain is the lack of using unicorn hair for the cable?
All right.
So how do you know if your SD card is the right SD card?
Gets me every time. The damn unicorn hair, man.
Yeah. All right, so let's see.
Getting
T5
planar.
All T5 versions were bad. So I'm not I mean, this is no secret. I'm not a fan of the Bayer peaks, like treble peaks, because again, I'm sensitive to that particular region. So I didn't like the DT1990 Pro. So I didn't like the DT880 that I used to own was actually okay. It didn't have as much of a peak, but I don't like the DT990 because of that reason as well. So I'm not like encouraged by, even if they're really good for resolution, stuff like that. Like I just worry about those peaks.
Did you see the Mad Planars thing? I've never even heard of this. I don't know, maybe Ants. Oh, the red. Is that the one? The red?
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can get one of those improved because they look
Aventum.
They look really cool. Yeah, or they look unique. So I'll see if I can get one
square.
of those. For
the red one looks really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got to make a purple one, right?
Yeah, and then it's $400. That's easy. So that's enough.
Oh, have you guys seen? Okay, this is a question for all of you guys. But have you seen the? There's a Chinese, or I think it's a Chinese company called Gold Planar.
Oh yeah,
and they do.
Ant was just telling me about this.
Yeah, and they did both
the SR1A and a
SR1A, yeah, and an AMT driver headphone.
Yeah.
So they basically did, and I mean to be honest, they look cool.
Yeah.
Like, but I looked at the frequency response and no,
not good.
I saw again. I don't know what the rig it was that was being used, but the one I saw was a comparison between the AMT one that they had and the LCD4, and it showed a similar lack of ear gain as the LCD4. So I'm not encouraged by that. But it's interesting, at least, that other companies are doing, trying to do full range AMT or the ribbon,
there's not many. I don't think there's anybody's outside of that, right? Outside of them doing the ribbon or AMT.
As far as the ribbon one, I don't know. But AMT, there is also one other company. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Bravo?
Oh, yeah, I think I've heard that.
I think there's one other company doing it, but not full range, as far as I know. Let's see. Couple more questions here. Come on, guys. If I miss your questions, ask again. If anybody's got questions for IEM questions, hit Theo with those.
Putting me on the spot, huh?
Yeah. We'll try and get you on the spot. LCD XC or Radiance? Pretty sure I know the answer already. LCD. Well, okay. If you can't handle 700 grams, then the Radiance. But right, that's the big question. It's don't worry about anything else. If weight is something that doesn't bug you, then yeah, the XC. But if you want a much more normal weighing headphone, then yeah, the Radiance.
And you have to realize too, Norton family says doesn't see a reason to go for the Radiance or the Elegia, and that's fair because the Radiance is also a very limited special edition. Like it's not meant to be like a consumer. Yeah. To my opinion, I'm not Focal. I have no insider knowledge. My opinion and my take on it is that it's a special limited, not meant to be like a massive consumer thing, and it's not going to be a huge amount of them that they're going to make. Yeah,
it's a special edition. There's the chat. I just caught up with it, so yeah, I see the comment now. Yeah, but yeah, like right now, you can buy an Elegia for $500, something like that.
400.
Yeah. Is it better than the Elegia? Yes, but that much better? I don't know. I think it's just that the Elegia is such a really good deal right now.
Do you think you can EQ it into being like?
Could you EQ an Elegia to sound like a Radiance? I don't know if that's.
I mean, that's
assuming
that I would do, that you're fine with EQ, right?
Yeah. I think you can EQ the Elegia and have it be pretty darn close. The main advantage is the bass response for the Radiance, I think, and the mid range is a lot more balanced on the Radiance. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think you can EQ an Elegia and have it sound pretty darn close. So that's what I would do.
Here's a good one. So, and actually, and Android could talk about a little bit too. But people have been talking about the Emu Teaks a lot again recently.
Yes, and I need to get one in for review because a lot of people are, because you can't buy the TRX00s anymore. Nope. So the Emu Teaks are the only
way to get
Fostex. Yeah.
And
and there
has the cup swap too. You can do the cup swap to get the different sound profiles and stuff, which is very interesting.
If anybody has one of those,
I've seen those mentioned a lot more recently.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If anybody has one and you want to send it in for measurements and review, let me know.
Steal it from your wife.
Yeah, that's what yeah. But and I can compare them with the TRX00s, the Ebonies.
Yeah, because I still have those. Ant has my Purple Hearts now, and he has the Ebony cups to replace them.
Yeah, with, so. I think those are like, those drivers are fantastic, and they like, they're not. There's definitely a limit to those drivers, but all those different headphones that they've been put into, they slam like crazy. So that's great.
Ant has a good one. Did you see his in there? The for you specifically, Resolved. Will you be able to measure impedance curves on headphones IEMs with your rig?
impedance curves.
I don't know what that means, so I'm just.
I mean, in theory, you mean like where the impedance swing is? Like, for example, on the like the Utopias is around like 50 hertz and stuff like that. I think that's what he means. Because I'm just using Ru, like I'm using room equalization, which is the same as like everybody else is using. So if anything you can capture with that, in theory, I'd be able to capture as well. But I haven't been specifically publishing that information. So maybe I don't. Yeah, maybe I'm not 100% sure.
Swings. He's saying swings. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is something that we'll need to do. At the very least, this is something that I want to look into and do more of.
Cool.
Because I want to, like, I'm also even considering like publishing other measurements and like methodology for publishing measurements. Because like I've decided to stick with the Harman combined curve. I was initially going to go with the target that I sent Kryn with the 900 hertz neutral, like the what he calls the in-ear fidelity target. But I stuck with the Harman combined for now because it to me that gives a target that is going to be helpful for EQ for anybody trying to EQ. And it was because like if you're just using a flat target there 900 hertz down, maybe this is good for representing the data, but I'd rather have something be not just good for representing it, but also good for trying to adjust for people's preference for if you're doing EQs. So I'm sticking with that for now, but at the same time, I also want to be publishing more stuff. So multiple different averages of the same headphone of the same side, stuff like that. And then, getting impedance swings would also be really nice. And now, hopefully, in the next little bit, I have something really exciting for the measurement stuff. Matt Economist is sending me. He actually built some in-ear microphones, so we'll be able to compare. At least ideally, I have to still figure out how to do this because I have to do a little bit of like,
Wasn't there a guy that did that a lot? What was his name?
No, it's the same thing, similar to what Olive from Olive's Gadgets does. But yeah, it's basically ear occluded microphones. So similar, same idea. But what I want to do with this is I want to be able to compare what the measurement of that is on my head. The battery exhaust.
I knew it.
At least it tells you.
There's the rainbow. There's the rainbow.
But
I've been charging the entire day, guys.
Yeah,
the entire day. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We saw you for a little bit. That's all we needed.
Yeah.
I'm recharged now because we got to see you. So.
Oh, thank you.
Refreshed and happy.
Yes, exactly. But we'll be able to compare the standardized rig and how things measure on the standardized rig with how they measure on my own ears. And this will be interesting for those cases where there is a difference in terms of how the measurement looks on the standardized rig and how I hear it. So at the very least, this is just more data to look at and publish if it's interesting. And like the other nice thing about that is it'll be able to provide some sort of like anchor for why I have the conclusions that I do. Like a lot of people, if it's like, oh, I don't hear it like this, like the way you said it, it's like, well, but I can show you how I heard it. At least ideally, that's what I'm hopeful to be able to achieve with this. Because at the end of the day, people do hear things differently. Let's see.
Somebody asked, Last Rhino asked about, is there such a thing as too much dynamics?
Well, you seem to think there is. I seem to think there isn't.
I think it's depending for scenario. It's like if you're listening to the music, I think it's
we should
great.
Be listening. How are
but
you listening?
I mean, if you're listening, if you're sitting there, focusing on the music is what I mean. But like when doing something else, I felt like it could be a little extra side.
Can you have an EQ profile that is my doing something else? Low dynamics, you low shelf it like crazy at around like 150 hertz.
I don't know. Like I feel like it's just the driver's excursive force. Like I don't think I can EQ that. So I mean, usually you can sort of fake dynamics by racing like around 150 to 200 hertz. But like this is like I can't. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like when I try this out, I was like, this is real excursion. Like this is.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you're used to planars as well, and then moving to something like that, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, no, and you can imagine what it was like moving from the HCA20, which doesn't have dynamics, to
it has fake
Stelia.
dynamics. It has the bass boost like
right,
crazy.
That's right. But after EQ, where I turned that down. So.
Yeah,
So.
fair enough. I think Andrew's going to do ASMR videos with that mic, the in-ear microphones.
True story.
I could do the binaural recordings. Yeah, we could do that. Could go for walks. Maybe go. Yeah.
Headphone show ASMR.
Yeah. My goal is to be able to go for a mountain bike ride with binaural microphones.
Yes, you can hear all the wind. You'll get all the wind.
Yeah.
Theo, hot take. Never had nice audiophile IEM. Would 10 Audio T3 be a nice start? Or what would be your preference for an entry-level IEM audiophile IEM?
Just ER2 XR or the Moondrop Starfield, honestly. But the 10 series is supposed to be really good from what I've heard, like in that price range.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't really comment on that because, I really don't listen to that stuff that often or go out of my way to buy that stuff, unfortunately. Ant would probably know, though. Ant has...
Android. Okay.
He's got all the
he has all the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't mind the T2 Plus. I thought that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
You had a shootout with them, right? With the SSR and the...
I kind of went...
else.
I was the blonde BL05. I think my favorite out of all of them was the 10 T2 Plus. But the thing is, like, the SSR was, I think, the more controversial one because it, in theory, could have had a better result if the tuning wasn't so shouty. Yeah. But I also found there was, like, this is interesting because you know how, like, we talk about, like, grain as, like, the absence of detail and stuff like that, and I heard it full of grain, but I think it may have actually just been because of the frequency response and how it was that made it so that it was, like, obscuring the detail for me. So, like, I'm kind of back and forth a little bit on, like, the SSR's technicalities because you hear it on some recordings that's, like, that has better technical, like, detail and stuff than other recordings, but then other recordings it's like there's grain there as well. So it makes me think that the idea of grain is not as synonymous with the absence of detail as I might think. And I came across that once before as well with the Hifiman Aria, where there was a frequency response related etch to it that I wasn't into, but it wasn't the absence of detail in any way, because you could actually EQ that and fix it. So
I'm just waiting for Precog to bust out his pillow and start ranting and raving about stuff.
Oh no!
I haven't fallen that far yet. Not yet.
Okay, a couple more questions, and then we'll call it. See anything else? We just finished that the too much slam question. See that? No, you got to end it with question marks, otherwise I won't see.
Yeah, right. That's something I'm gonna do. I'm like, Mesh Universal and Custom. I think Ant's doing that right now on Audio Discourse. I think he already did it actually. Did he?
Yeah.
I think it's on the forum too. Yeah, Ant's got it.
Somebody asked if I only got the Monarch, or if I got the Monarch and the Clairvoyance. I think it's just the Monarch. I haven't picked it up yet, but I think it's just the Monarch.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I think they're having production issues. Actually, they're a bit behind because of the demand.
Yeah,
the Monarch's good, man. I keep calling it the Mona, and people get mad at me. So I keep doing it.
When you say people, it's me. I get mad.
It's the Mona. Now I got a bunch of crap too in the 80s side.
Okay.
The Mona, because Monarch, Mona. I abbreviate. I cut the one in half. Mona and Claire.
Yeah,
that's what I was calling them. People were getting super mad at me. Sorry.
Actually, everybody's been calling him Claire.
Multiple driver headphones. Razer just came out with one, right? Where like they have 3 different drivers, one for bass, mids, and treble.
Astro IEMs Precog go.
What is that?
Oh yeah,
they just got announced today. There's the Astro made it a gaming IEM for $50.
I gotta look at that. Oh wait, is that the link you shared?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta read that.
I thought Tyler
Razer had some before.
No joke. They just announced it today. No, it's
Razer had some gaming.
Oh, that's right. They did. They had Razer did have some gaming ones.
Well, there's also one more did it, and then also Final Audio did it with the
right.
Sonorous or Pandora Hope, I think they called it. And it didn't work that great. I mean, it was cool, but basically they used a BA, a very large BA with a dynamic driver in an over-ear headphone, and it was odd because you could hear the crossover. Like it was really weird. I mean, it had bass.
It had bass. It had bass. There was a sound.
It made sound. Yeah. I wasn't that into it though, to be honest. Like, yeah. Anyways, I think we should probably call it because we're at 2 hours now. So we'll try and turn this into a podcast so anybody watching it afterwards can. And of course, you wouldn't know that until you got to the end of the video. But, oh well. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for your questions.
Apologies for the camera again.
Yeah, it's okay. Mine's about to overheat,
You're
so
good.
2 hours is like the limit that we got for
Fair enough.
4K.
All right. Well, hey, it was great chatting with everybody, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Probably.
Actually, probably. That. Yeah, we have some stuff coming up, so we
got a really exciting stream coming up. Actually.
Yeah. So.